Let me start off by thanking everybody that is attending this workshop. This workshop, we have organizations from around the nation. I counted 12 different states that's part of this workshop for how to start, operate, finance, and grow a nonprofit. I'm have a favorite, I have a favorite phrase that I use all the time. And that phrase is that nonprofit rocks. And I say that because nonprofits are the individuals that's not talking about it. They are actually making changes in their neighborhoods. I call them ordinary people that's doing extraordinary things. Instead of looking at TV and talking about how sad it is related to human conditions, they're actually stepping out and making a change in this world today. I call them untold heroes. I think I'm pronouncing it right. The next workshop is going to talk about how to start a nonprofit, how to operate it, finance, and grow a nonprofit. My name is Michael Randolph, and I'm the CEO for the Center for Nonprofit, as well as the CEO for the National Institute for Strategic and Tactical Planning.
This is a reminder.
This presentation should be anywhere from 50 minutes to about an hour and 15 minutes long. It can be longer depending upon the number of people that have questions related to the workshop. So the mission at the Center for Nonprofit and Community Development is to strengthen organizations that strengthen communities. And again, we do this on a national level. We provide an array of different professional services to both for-profits as well as nonprofits as well as for-profit, because the majority of our work is focused on nonprofits, although we do work with for-profits from our sister corporation, the National Institute for Strategic and Tactical Planning. The next workshop is going to focus on 501c3 preparation. Again, we provide an array of different services from government procurement, and I encourage if you're a minority that you begin to do business with the federal government if you're on the for-profit side of the table. So we provide all of these services that you're looking at now. So I was born in a community known as Santon. It's on the west side of Baltimore City in Baltimore, Maryland. I have been doing this type of work for over 35 years. So I was first introduced to community buildings way back there in the early 1980s, where I started as a community organizer. And from there, I went to program strategic and program developer to designing community comprehensive initiatives and all those things in between, including grant writing. The nonprofit started in 2011, and the purpose was to provide technical support in the area of skill sets to start up nonprofits and existing nonprofits. That is to enhance and increase and strengthen their capacity to service their clients. What we saw was a gap in terms of those new startup nonprofits and nonprofits that's been existing for a while, the mature nonprofits. We found that your startup nonprofits, and this is the numbers backing up, are more likely to fail. Based on the national numbers, anywhere from 8 to 10 nonprofits that's getting started up will fail within the next 2 to 3 years. This workshop is dedicated to providing those skill sets to those nonprofits to have a fighting battle. So we specialize in developing neighborhood planning and economic development, and especially for poverty-stricken communities. Our approach to sustainability is framed around a social entrepreneur business model. Let me add that we also focus on both using artificial intelligence and chat GPT as a way to even the playing field. So we focus on creating national models and best practice approaches. To date, we provide technical assistance to over 2,500 nonprofits and claiming. These include government agencies, faith-based groups, businesses, and individuals. And the majority of those individuals are benefited from our free workshops like you've seen today. And we'll talk about the different workshops that we do sponsor. In terms of working with nonprofits and getting their 501c3 status, we've done over well over 300, close to 450 now to date, in terms of working with those nonprofits around the nation to get their paperwork done for them to be a 501c3, and then to work with them throughout the different stages. So we've done this work so far in terms of helping nonprofits throughout the United States. We'll focus on these 12 states here. We provided the paperwork for these nonprofits and in some cases for small startup businesses. In Florida, we're in 8 different areas in Florida. Florida is probably one of the largest states in the United States. So we have tapped into providing assistance to all of these counties here, plus some that I have not been able to add thus far. And in terms of the cities and counties within those jurisdictions, we're in 14 different cities in the state of Florida. So we've assisted in terms of either writing a grant or either participate and being part of a grant writing committee to give input, or an individual giving input to what a grant should look like. And in that time, we then assisted in preparing or taking part in grants that total over $75 million. Keep in mind, it might have been a grant for 1,000, or might have been a grant for 30 million, etc. When you look at a person's track history, we think that we're in that top categories. And we say that because if you look at our profile on LinkedIn, and I challenge you to follow us on LinkedIn, we have over 1,000 recommendations from different individuals that we work with, from lay people to professionals related to our services. In terms of accomplishments, I'm not going to go through all of this. You'll get this when you receive the presentation for attending this class, but you can see I've been around for a minute and I've done a lot of things. So now let's talk about the 501c3. In this section, you're going to learn about what is a nonprofit, what are bylaws, what's a purpose statement, what are articles of incorporation, what's the conflict of interest policy, solicitation requirements, the actual application, known as a 1023, and more. A nonprofit is a tax-exempt organization that serves the public interest. Now, there are over 29 different types of nonprofits. The nonprofit that we're talking about tonight is what's known as a 501c3. And we'll work with different types of nonprofits from that 29 different categories. But tonight we're focused on 501c3. Now, before we go to the 501c3 framework, I want to talk about a new type of nonprofit that is currently in place in a couple of states. This new type of nonprofit is really unique. And then we'll go into the 501c3. The latest type of nonprofit, like or entity, is known as a low-profit limited liability company. This type of entity is both a for and a nonprofit, all combined into one. Right now, they're only in certain states. I think it's like 10 states. We actually are coming up on a class. We're talking about what an L3C is, because I think that as this type of nonprofit spread, you definitely want to be part of this new type of nonprofit, and it's unique than a regular nonprofit in a couple of ways. Now, funding from IRS for charitable causes come in the form of two types of ways. First is your traditional 501c3. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight, in which the government says to foundations that in order to be consistent with your status, then you have to provide at least 5% of your net proceeds to nonprofits towards a nonprofit cause. And that's what requirement from the IRS. So the 501c3 is able to get that type of money, but it's limited, and we're going to talk about that later. The other type of funding that's coming from this fast is known as a profit-related investment. These are funding coming from the bank that you can get low to no interest loan. And it's a unique type of nonprofit, a charitable organization. And we'll talk a lot about this type of new type of nonprofit that's coming up. Not in this session, but in another session that's going to be titled The Raise of the L3C. What's unique about this type of entity, unlike your nonprofit 501c3, the donations that come in for a nonprofit has to come through donations through foundations and corporations. So you're limited in that particular respect, and you're limited in terms of what you can do. And L3C, on the other hand, is like a business. So that means you can go after monies in order to build owners' investment in your business, investment in public company. As you can see, a whole array of different things. It is a different type of beast, and that it brings in unlimited funding that nonprofits right now, like 501c3, cannot go for. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in an upcoming workshop, but I just wanted to let you know that some big things are coming up in the nonprofit world. Okay, now let's go to the 501c3. When you start to put together your 501c3, there are three key lines, three focuses that you should be able to articulate. First, you should be able to tell folks what is your purpose. Then you have to talk about what is your vision and what is your mission. The purpose has to do with why do you do what you do and what do you do. Your vision is your organization beliefs that their organization believes are the conditions for your community. It is how things would look if the issue important to you were completely addressed. The mission is an organization statement that describes what the group is going to do and why it's going to do that. The first set of documents, and then again, this is not legal advice. These workshops are informational workshops. The first type of document that you want to prepare for your nonprofit is what's known as bylaws. And bylaws just simply sets the foundation as to who can do what, when, where, and how. It basically sets it sets forth the structure of the organization and determine the rights of the participants and the procedures. There are different parts of the bylaws, ranging from qualification, the number of board members, the committees, officers, public statement, and indemnification. Indemnification is very, very important because a clause that says that if you do sue the corporation, that you can only sue the corporation and not the individual board members. Your articles of incorporation, which is the next set of documents, is the document that makes you legal. And it's called the Articles of Incorporation. Your Articles of Incorporation consist of these different components, from the name of your organization, down to how is everything governed in your organization. These are the different components. Conflict of interest is a document that you should put together, and it's important because it's required that you put together a conflict of interest to show that people who sit on your board are not there to get something of value or are getting something that relates to monetary or anything of value from sitting on your board of directors, other than the CEO, who is the person that's paid on the board of directors, because that individual has to deal with the day-to-day operation of matters in that corporation. Now, contrary to nonprofits, for-profits can pay that board of directors. And then your EIN number. Your EIN number is the number that represents your corporation. And you can go online and get this, set up your EIN number. That's going to be the number that is associated with your 501c3. So the 501c3 application is the next step. Once the state approves your articles of incorporations, then you can file for your tax status with the IRS by way of what's known as the Form 1023. The 1023 EZ, or you can file with 1023. But all of this is done online in terms of filing for your status as a 501c3. Once you get your status on the state, on the federal level, now you want to come back to your state and ask for an exemption for state sale taxes. In the state of Florida, and every state has this form right here. In the state of Florida, it's a D5, DR5. The next document you're looking at now is what's known as solicitation. In order to solicit money or donations in a state, you have to file with that government agency that oversees solicitation. In the state of Florida, it's the Florida Department of Agricultural and Consumer Services. It's called the 1-100. The 10-100. And the 10-100 is a form that needs to be done every year, and you can be penalized. Now, once you file with that particular state agency, then in Florida, you're going to get a license number. This is not your tax ID number. This is a license to operate in that particular state. It's important that in your building that you make that license present. Like any other business, you have to have a license to operate in that state. A lot of people think that you can start your nonprofit and get your 501c3 status, and then you can go out and start to solicit money. You can't. Every state requires that once you get that status, now you come back to them so they can regulate and make sure that the monies that you really use are the money that you say you want to use it for are actually being used for that. So there are different stages of a nonprofit. 3 different stages. The first stage is the emergent stage. That's the stage where you are focused on legal and business compliance. That's what this class is going to talk about. We're going to talk about the 501c3 and how to get it started. That means how to get you legal. And then the other thing the nonprofit does during the business compliance is to make sure you compliance, business compliance. Every year you have to file taxes. Every year you have to do your annual report with the state. Every year you have to do all these things to make sure that you stay current. This is what we call the emergent stage, stage 1. Stage 2 is what's known as the intermediate stage. And this stage consists of human resource development, board training, putting together policies and procedures, and beginning to address what staff do you need in terms of operating your organization and what are the other things that's needed to operate that nonprofit. The advanced stage is that stage in which you begin to get yourself ready to open up your business. During the advanced stage, you're putting together your organizational operation, your program development, your fund development. You're putting together your infrastructure, your financial management systems, your marketing, your public relationship, and your online presence and visibility. So now let's get ready to do part two, in which we begin to talk about the grant and what are the different components and how do you put together a professional grant. I call it a winnable grant, a fundable grant. So in this part of the class, you're going to learn about the different types of grants, describe the different types of grantors, identify research tools available to the grant seeker, describe the fundamentals of writing the grant, describe the proposal writing process, describe the concept paper, and on and on and on. So, what do funders look for when they consider funding a particular project? As you know, there are more people that need money than there are funds to fund those organizations. So you really want to do an assessment as to, what is it that these funders are looking for, so I know how to tap into that money and be in more of a winnable position. One of the things they look for is, what is your sustainable financial model? How is your organization different from other nonprofits? What hard and soft data support your position of the need and the problem? We also call it quantitative and qualitative data. What are your measurement tools that you're going to use to show what success look like? Then you want to talk about, what is the reason why you started the nonprofit? What's the value? Also, what networks, partnership, and collaboration, etc., have you put together? And then finally, they want to look at your accounting practice to make sure you know how to be responsible for the monies that they are going to be giving you. So let's talk about the different types of grants. The first type of grant is what's known as an unrestricted. It's known as unrestricted. So these funds may be used for general support purposes. But most grants, almost 95% of grants, are what's known as restricted grants. That means you can only use the money for what the agreement, which is what called the award letter, stipulate. Those type of restricted type of funding include funding for your programs or your projects. Also, it also could include seed money for new programs that you want to get started. Also, seed money is important because most times seed money is going to be the money that you go for to hire your CEO for your organization. Normally, the first person you want to hire in a nonprofit corporation is the CEO, who's responsible for taking care of the day-to-day operation for the organization. We actually provide training for CEOs. The next type of restricted funding is known as capital grants. This is if you want to buy a piece of land, you want to do construction or if you want to do land acquisition. Endowment, and we list this right here because it is a type of grant, is mostly associated with banks. And I'm sorry, mostly associated with institutions of higher learning. And then you have what's known as your challenge or matching grant. That is, sometimes you might go for a grant, and the funder might say that, okay, we see you want 100,000. We're going to challenge you to find 10,000, and we'll give you 90,000. So that's what they call a challenge grant. And then finally, your in-kind support. And don't downplay the importance of in-kind support when it comes to new nonprofits. Just getting started. Plenty nonprofit. In-kind support is another word for pro bono. That means someone who has a skill set is willing to use that skill set for you for free. And that is what we call in-kind support. You have a lawyer that is normally charging $500 an hour, but they're going to do free pro bono work for your nonprofit. Or an accountant that's going to do free pro bono work for your nonprofit. That's important because as you go for grants, especially when you just getting started, you want to show we don't have a lot of cash, but we got a lot of people that are definitely investing in our nonprofit. The other in-kind support is volunteers. You can put that in the in-kind section when you do your grant. Because for every person that's volunteer, even if it's a lay person that's coming to do something, they also can benefit. And you can use those numbers in terms of in-kind support. And federal grants, for example, in-kind, you can use in-kind up to $22 an hour for that person that's doing volunteer work for your organization. Again, you can leverage that when you're going after grants, and that you can show that, hey, we're just getting started, but we got a lot of pro bono individuals that are working with us that believe in us. And it's a total amount of value that is brought to the table. Okay, let's talk about the different types of grantors, the people that give the money. So it's the individual like you and we tend to be the source of the largest amount of money when it comes to nonprofits. So it's the individual like you and I. And here are some of the advantages and disadvantages. Then you have what's known as family and community foundations. Family foundations are biologically connected to each other, like the Clinton Foundation, the Obama Foundation, the Gates Foundation. These individuals are biologically connected to each other. And then you got community foundations. Community foundations are those foundations that give money only if you're within the community in which they are focused on. Then you have corporate foundations. Now, what's interesting about corporate foundation is that they must give up to 5% of their net proceeds to nonprofits in order to maintain that status as a corporate foundation. And corporate foundations is everywhere, anywhere from Coca-Cola to Pepsi, uh, to Amazon, to Walmart, and the list goes on that are corporate foundation. The next level is what's known as federated funds, like the United Way. That's another funding source. And then finally, is the government funds. They tend to be the hardest to get. You actually have to hire a person in some cases just to keep the paperwork related to that particular grant. But they do have large sums of money that they provide. Okay, let's move forward. Now let's talk about how do we identify where the money is. And as you see, we have a list of different research tools to find grants. I do have highlighted two items on this list in red. The first is the Foundation Center. The Foundation Center, um, you can find well over 125,000 profiles of people that give money. They have a very extensive profile of people that give money. And then you have grants.gov. Grants.gov is when you're going for federal money. This is where you go at to identify to get federal money. And then, of course, you have the other different items on this list from the Federal Register down to Grant Station. I've been using Grant Station a lot late. It's cheaper than the Foundation Center, but it's not as extensive as the Foundation Center. So that's a four-step process to gaining a competitive funding edge. First, you want to write the foundation. You want to follow the application and guidelines that's in the application. To the extent possible, you want to talk to someone that received that grant in the past, someone that was an interviewer and gave the award to the group, and the contact person or the program officer related to that particular grant. All this is public information. Excuse me. So that means that, like, for example, you go to the bank, you go to the Foundation Center. We say Bank of America. Let me find out what grant did they have going on this year, and then you want to find out, hey, who did they fund? Who was the people that sat on the board to review and award it? And who's this year's current person for this year's grant? You want to contact that person and let them know and run the idea past them as to what you're trying to do and see if it fits what they're looking for. You're increasing your chance of getting that grant 60, 70% by doing this. Okay, now we get to the meat of the grant. And the first thing we want to address and we're going to have a conversation about is the problem. The problem. What is the problem that you're trying to solve? And trying to solve the problem, you want to talk about what is the specific, what specifies the conditions you want to change. You have to be very clear related to that. You have to show, for example, how important it is and how significant is the problem. You have to be able to demonstrate that the problem is feasible and is manageable to solve. You have to be able to use both quantitative and qualitative research to make your argument of what the problem is, who it affects, the what, the when, the where, and the how, and definitely the how much. When we talk about the different approaches to getting the data you want to use to support your needs statement, the first is known as quantitative research. And quantitative research is all about the what, and it's all about the how many. Quantitative research, for example, looks at if we deal with a problem having to do with homelessness. Quantitative research will tell you how many people are homeless, where they're homeless at, and other information like that to give you the percent of something. The other thing about quantitative research, it gives you the why as well. So if we type in why are so many people homeless, it's going to give you a list of different authors and authorities to talk about the subject. That's going to be important when you do your needs statement. You need to show that you have backup information from a third-party source related to the information, a third-party source that you've gotten your data from. And you can get this information from different sources. Qualitative research, on the other hand, is research that you get from the very individuals that are your clients. And qualitative research is very subjective. It consists of focus groups, interviews, surveys. So, for example, if your group dealt with teen pregnancy, then you would have a focus group of teen individuals that are either pregnant or more likely to be pregnant. And you do that focus group by asking them different questions. And then when you do that grant, you can show that you actually got it from the horse's mouth as to what they see the problem is. And that's again called qualitative research. Then you combine both this quantitative and qualitative research together to have yourself a strong statement of problem. There's some different ways that you can find this research. I like the census tract because it's really in depth. In Florida, you can also use as Florida Tots. This is where you can find anything related to social and health conditions. And then you have city data. City data is where you can go in and get an extensive research in a particular area that you're located. Number of housing, number of people that live there. It's a very extensive form of research that you can use. Now that we have that together, let's talk about the program, the design, the approach. We know what the problem is. We know what our mission is, our purpose is. We know what the we know what we need to do to solve the problem. Is what we want to talk about now, and that's the program, the design, and the approach. So in looking at solving problems, we first have to begin to put together a framework. That framework consists of, now that we know what our mission is and our purpose is, what are our goals, our strategies, and our objectives? So goals, when we look at goals, we talk really about the final impact or outcome that you want to bring about. When we're talking about a strategy is a plan of plan of action, a method, a process, or specific step taken to accomplish a goal. The objective is your objective specify the outcome of your project and the end product. And it's normally what we call simple. There are different types of objectives. One objective might be to change someone's behavior, one is performance, another process, and another is called a product. All of these consist of beginning to have the conceptualization as to what is the product that you want to bring about and what does it look like. So a goal, again, this goes an example set of, this gives examples of goals, strategies, and objectives. Again, I'll be sending this to you for you to look at this at your leisure. Now that we got that out the way, now we begin to talk about actually the program design and the methods section. The methods section describes your program or project activities in detail, indicating how your objectives will be accomplished. It should include the following, but it's not limited. For example, you should give a description of how you will accomplish each objective. You should have a description of your personnel, staffing needs, qualification, and job description. You should have a description of what facilities do you need, what equipment do you need, what materials do you need. You should have a description of how the program will be administered. How would it be coordinated with your other activities? The scope of activity should be reasonable within the time frame that you have allotted. It should be a detailed description of what will occur from the time the project begins until when that project closes out. The first part of a grant is known as the introduction. The introduction is a credibility statement that describes your professional and organizational qualifications. The conclusion, and this should be written last, as well as a summary. The conclusion. So every proposal should have a concluding paragraph or two. See, this is a good place where to call attention to what you plan to do in the future after the grant is completed. The thing about this section here, unlike any other part of the grant, is this is when you can get really emotion. Normally, throughout the grant, you tell only the facts and nothing but the facts. For example, if you're a mother that lost her child to gun violence, this is when you can say that I do this because of the pain that's constant from losing my child senselessly in the streets to street violence. So when this is when you begin to get really emotional during that last part. So this next session, this talks about how you plan to get this information out. And as you know, you can use your traditional project letters, website, pamphlets, your uh, speeches, display at meetings, etc. What is new about the day's approach to get information out is what's known as artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, and the Web3. That's what we use as a way to get this information out. As a matter of fact, we got a workshop coming up on artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, and the Web3. Again, we have many types of workshops that we do throughout the year. Appendix. Okay, what should go into it? This includes some of the information that you need to put in there. In red, I have some of the most important ones that you have. For example, a list of board members and officers, recent annual report, organizational physical report, past success stories, letters of support, any written articles that was written on your organization should also go there. Now, when we look at the appearance of the application in terms of format, as you can see, this outlines some of the things you want to take into consideration and do when you do that grant. But more importantly, every grant will have its own section on its format. Make sure you look at the format that the grantor wants. For example, the grantor might say number all pages. The grantor might say make lists. It might say put things in bold. Whatever. Make sure you read that section related to the parent. Evaluation. Okay, so far we've gone over vision, mission, goals, objectives, strategies, method section. Now, we've gotten all that together. We even gotten to the program design. Now we have to show how can we show what success look like. And this is what we call evaluations. Now, probably two types of measurements or evaluation that most funders look at. First is called a program evaluation, and the second is called a performance evaluation. And we're going to give an example of these types of, I'm sorry, the first is the program evaluation, and the second is the performance measures. That is that how do you measure those programs? I'm going to talk about three types of evaluation tools. Of course, there's more. The first type of tool is known as a goal-based evaluation. Goal-based evaluations are evaluating the extent to which programs are meeting the predetermined goals and objectives. As you know, a lot of organizations been around for 15 years, and they need to constantly go back to make sure that what they're doing today is the same thing that they signed up for 15 years ago. So this is called a goal-based evaluation. The next evaluation is called an outcome-based evaluation. An outcome-based evaluation basically says this is going to be the outcome if you give us the money for the program. In other words, this is what success look like. It's what's known as a logic model. This is one of many types of different types of logic model. This logic model starts with the goal, and then it breaks it up related to how you plan to do what you do into different categories. First, it talks about what do you plan to do? How do you plan to do it? Who's responsible? Why you doing what you do? What evidence that you have and are you going to use? Where you going to do it? And when you're going to do it. So all of these different categories from process objectives, activities, responsible parties, expected outcome, indicator measurements, data source, to time of implementation related to the when is part of the logical model. It actually breaks down so the person can see what the program looks like. Because a lot of times the program might be 20, 40, 50, 100 pages long. This gives a bird eye view of what you plan to do. It goes back when I say earlier, the what, the who, the how, the where, etc. The next type of evaluation tool that is accepted in the area of program evaluation is what's known as a process-based evaluation. Notice we talked about the three different types of evaluation. We talk about the goal, objective evaluation. We talk about the outcome evaluation. Now we're talking about the process-based evaluation. The outcome-based evaluation talked about the what you plan to do, from output, input, and things of that nature. The process-based evaluation talks about how you're going to do it. And it consists of three columns. It starts with the community problem, the specific intervention, that is the how, what you plan to do in order to solve the problem, and then what is going to be the intended outcome. Normally, in the no, remember when we did the logic model and when we talked about outcome, we didn't say specific what type. We just talked about outcome. In the process-based evaluation, we talk about the intended outcome. So when we talk about the specific intervention, we're talking about we're talking about what exactly is going to take place in order for the change to take place. How long it's going to take, and what has to happen for it to take place. For example, in this specific intervention strategy here, they talk about that tutors, individual are going to be tutored 3 times a week for 20 minutes on the 5 building blocks to literacy. So they specify when, where, how, what they plan to do to intervene to make that necessary. So that's what we call the process-based evaluation. How long does it take? What's going to be done? And the intended outcome shows that what we intend to, what will be the benefit, the result, end result. Students will be able to read at 3rd grade level. Notice when you start back from the community problem, they couldn't read. So at the end of the day, your outcome is going to be, they're going to be able to read. The organization, yourself. When you talk about the organization, you should be able to talk about the who, the what, and the how much. What we do is provide assistance in building this organization capacity, and we do this through our CEO training, as well as the many of other different specific types of programs and programs that we have, and we'll be emailing those out to you as well. In terms of organization capacity, you should be able to address the question as to why does your organization exist? Who are you? What program or activities are you bringing about? Notice when we talk about program and activity, we're talking about those programs and activities that are based upon a best practice approach to doing something. So you have to use best practice approaches in designing your program, and those programs must meet those criteria. And the other thing that you want to deal with in terms of your capacity is how will you implement these programs? And you have to be really detailed about that, about implementing those programs. And then how much will it cost? These are the infrastructural, organizational infrastructure that you need to have in place. Remember, we talked about the different stages of a nonprofit, and we talked about in that final stage, which is the advanced stage, you need to have these specific documents. Well, here's an example of what those documents you have to have in order to begin to do organizational capacity. Again, we provide the services to provide all of these different items here, as well as any and everything else that we talk about in the program. So let's move on. Now, as you begin to look at moving to that advanced stage and above, you want to put together what's known as a 5-year strategic plan. A 5-year strategic plan is an internal look at the organization in terms of its strengths, its weakness, and where you want to be from an organizational perspective within the next 5 years. It differs from a business plan, and the business plan focus on the financial aspect of how you plan to bring about what's known as financial sustainability. So a business plan and a strategic plan is 2 different pieces. Also, sometimes you can combine the 2, but most times an individual one either use a strategic plan or your business plan, or both, but not combined together. Your strategic plan is going to deal with your goals, your strategies, your objectives, your tactics, your operations and methods, and your budget. A SWOT analogy is a instrument that's used by a lot of your Fortune 5,000 corporations to make sure that they stay ahead of their game because they're constantly checking themselves. A SWOT analogy looks at your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. While a lot of grantors might not request this, I would always put together this. This to show the funders that you're thinking this like a business. Although you might be a nonprofit, nevertheless, you're thinking this like a business. When you talk about what makes strong organizations, you can't not overlook the core components. First, values. What are your values? Why do you believe what you believe? Your mission. Why does
This is a reminder.
it exist?
Pay credit card bill for today. This is a reminder.
Your mission.
Pay credit card
Where
bill
are
for
we
today.
going? Your strategy. How will you get there? And your tactics. What will you do to get there? So this makes up your core components from your values, your mission, your vision, your strategies, and your tactics. It breaks down to your long-term, medium, and short-term approaches. The other key instruments that you want to have that you move forward with your nonprofit is a business plan, an operational plan, a financial management, a fundraising strategy, health and risk management, a marketing and branding strategy, and a partnership and collaborative. Again, we believe in providing the next school, next generation approach to enhancing the quality of nonprofits. And again, what we do to assist us is to use both artificial ChatGPT and the Web3 in order to provide the greatest efficient, productive, and affordable services to nonprofits. Now, let's talk about funding. Where do you get the money in? So, what have we talked about so far? We talked about the vision, the mission, the strategy, the program design, the evaluation. I'm talking about how do we make sure the program, what does success look like? And that's what an evaluation is. Now, after doing all that, we're ready to go for the money. Where's the money? Where's the beat? Now, this section is going to be talking about financial sustainability. We use what's known as a social entrepreneur approach to building sustainable nonprofit models. The approach here is focused on your traditional ways of bringing in dollars that include monies from the public sector in terms of subsidies and from charitable contribution. In addition to that, and probably one of the most key components to sustainability is what's known as earned income. Earned income is used to pursue social objectives by simultaneously seeking both financial and social return on investment. Let's talk about the different components that make up this model. The first is, well, revenue, or in other words, resources or input, the money that's coming in. The input, the output, the outcome, and the benefit. When we look at the revenue or benefit or input side, monies are coming in traditionally from grants, fee for services, development fees. For example, if you are doing housing or anything of that nature, consultant fees, if you become so good at what you do, and now you can charge other organizations that's doing the same thing. Also from own and operating your own businesses as a nonprofit. There is a rule in IRS that says that you can own and operate your own business as long as the business and what you're selling is consistent with the mission and purpose of that organization. Again, we do a class specific to from IRS related to, hey, what can you use to bring in money and not be taxed for? And then the other types of input includes financial investments and things of that nature in the stock market and things of that nature. The next component is output. What is the output? That's going to be what if you got the input, the money that's coming in, what's going to be the output? The output can be, for example, employment program, public safety, youth program, community building, etc. Whatever the program is that you're doing. Output, outcomes has to do with increasing the quality of life. That is, what is going to be the benefit? In this case, it's the quality of life. It's going to increase employment for folks in the neighborhood, increase affordable housing, reduce crime, etc. Again, the output, the outcome, begin to talk about what are those outcomes that will come about as a result of the funding. And then the benefit. What are the benefits in this particular case? And since you're doing something related to community development, you're showing that it's going to increase the tax base, reduce city services, reduce public safety, reduce the risk for lenders, etc. The budget. The budget is more than just a statement of proposed expenditures. It is an alternate way of expressing your project. So there's different types of costs associated with that. Again, we do provide training on how to prepare simple to complex budgets. The different type of costs associated is direct costs, indirect costs, cost sharing, and in-kind support or pro bono. All these different categories make up the grant, or make up the budget for the grant proposal. So this concludes our class. Again, we do have online classes that are focused towards those individuals that want to take an in-depth grant class. That's anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. These individuals taking an in-depth class is individuals that want to not only learn how to write a grant, but also to make side money from writing a grant. Grant writers can make beginner grant writers can make anywhere from $20 up to $200 per hour. And a lot of times it's a lot of hours that you have to put into writing a grant. So that means it's a lot of hours that you can get income from. Now, if you're in this class, we do have a discount. That discount is that classes would normally be $700. If you're in this class and you want to take that class, we reduce that down to $450. This is a special invitation for the next 30 days. When you email us related to the in-depth class, just let us know that, hey, I attended the class and this is the date that I attended the class. The other thing is that we also can provide assistance to those of you who want to start a nonprofit by providing all of the paperwork that we talked about in the first section. Again, normally we would charge for provide all the paperwork in order to submit to your state. That amount will be 400, but because you're taking part in this class, we'll reduce that down to 275. Okay, so hopefully you've gotten a lot out of the class tonight. I'm looking forward to having future conversations with you. You can email me at the Center for Nonprofit and Community Development. I'm sorry, let me repeat that. I made a mistake. It's the Center for Nonprofit and Community at gmail.com. The Center for Nonprofit and Community at gmail and .com. It's not the Center for Nonprofit and Community Development. It is the Center for Nonprofit and Community at gmail.com. I'm looking forward to sharing with you all of the classes that we are going to be doing. Thanks again for attending tonight's class. Again, go out there and really make a difference. At least now you got the understanding of what you need to be a successful nonprofit.